so good.
So we are joined now by Camilla, Tominey and Ateh Jewel. Camilla's down the line there alongside the King's former Communications Secretary, Kristina Kyriacou. So good to have you guys with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
For their reaction to the final episode, Al, where do we start?
Well, the 3 episodes have dropped. Obviously, it dropped at 8 o'clock today. I've only managed to watch three-quarters of a way through. Let's get your initial reactions. Ateh, what did you think?
I've watched 1.5. I love Team Harry and Meghan even more. I've been supporting them, if you look at my Instagram, for years. I think they're really charming, sincere. I'm really proud that they are able to get their side of the story across. This, you know, ultimately is a family. I want them to heal, but they're also throwing up huge issues that I think people aren't ready to deal with. They've put a huge mirror up to the British public, talking about unconscious bias, this kind of toxic relationship with the media, and I think we are ready, post-Black Lives Matter, post-pandemic, to deal.
Kristina, obviously, you had privy to being in the royal family, seeing what went on. How are you seeing things? What's your reaction to the documentary so far?
Well, there's definitely more revelations in the next 3 episodes. I've only skimmed through myself as well. What I would say is I feel some of their inferences are open-ended. You don't quite get to the nub of what they're inferring. And also, their narrative seems to change. Now, I understand this is a cathartic process and I welcome that and I'm sure everyone else does. But equally, they did leave here because of media intrusion, but now they seem to have left here because they actually just wanted to give up royal duties. It wasn't the media intrusion. So I do feel there's inconsistencies in their narrative, and I also feel a lot of their inferences, you want to actually know what was it that Prince William and the King discussed. What was the it that they discussed? We sat down to discuss it, but it wasn't addressed. What was it? Mm-hmm. And we wanted an apology, but we didn't get an apology. For what? Mm-hmm. So that's all I would say, is it doesn't quite go far enough for me, because I feel that they know in their minds what they're referring to, but the British public, the global public, are not really going to understand what they're referring to.
Can I pose more questions than answers?
Yes.
Camilla, what's your take?
Well, I think it's very, very punchy. I mean, some parts of it strike me as kind of a declaration of war against the monarchy. And I put it that strongly because they really do, particularly Harry, sort of delve into this idea of them and us. He's basically saying that at the Sandringham summit, where they worked out the kind of terms of the Megxit divorce deal, that William was screaming at him and that he was terrified, and that his father was coming out with all-out lies. And it's very much saying, look, you know, they're part of the institution, therefore they are in cahoots with the media. They were all working against me and Meghan. They did nothing to protect us, and that's why we had to leave. I mean, this is a singular Sussex narrative about their departure from the royal family, not taking really any prisoners. But obviously, as Kristina's just said there, what you then get is something very one-sided, right? You've got their version of events, basically supported by very loyal contributors who agree with it in their vision, and none of the alternative narrative. I mean, it goes so far as to say, not only that the palaces are in cahoots with the British press, but that the palace actively briefed against them. Harry says at one point that a statement that was released to combat a story suggesting that they had been bullied out of the royal family by William was released without his permission, even though it had his name on it. You know, if that isn't a hugely combative and controversial thing to say, I don't know. And I was left with the impression, oh, I see. What you're really trying to do here is totally destabilize the institution of monarchy and have all of the people watching this Netflix documentary doubt it, which is quite a significant thing to do, right? Constitutionally or otherwise.
I want to see that clip in just a second, but Camilla, so sort of to touch on your point, from someone that writes about the royals and has links to the court, I suppose, I mean, is that a reality in some way, shape or form that you recognise? The idea that...
Not really. No, because what's happening is the couple are doing this thing along with the contributors to this, where they are lumping the royal press pack and all the newspapers with all the tabloids, and then lumping the tabloids with everyone that's ever trolled them on Twitter. And they're just like tarring everyone with the same brush. And it's weird because they're showing some coverage that they like, so like warm coverage of them and Meghan's arrival onto the scene and the birth of Archie and all the rest of it. That's okay. But when it becomes negative, the coverage, it's automatically wrong and racist. And my perspective from a royal correspondent, or former royal correspondent, I'm not one anymore, is, you know, we were there to cover all of your charitable initiatives and Invictus and all the rest of it. So he's saying that we are an extension of the palace PR machine, but then in the same breath, he's saying, but we also made their lives a misery. Well, it can't be both. We can't be part and parcel of the palace. It's not just that they aren't the only people that have ever faced negative publicity in the royal family. Harry seems to be saying, well, it's not a game and I don't want to play this game and I don't want to be part of this deal with the media. But I mean, the palace generally treats people like me with a degree of complete mistrust, suspicion and contempt. I mean, I'm not ever been handed a bloody story on the plate by the palace. I find that notion kind of incredible. Kristina will be able to vouch for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to come back to you guys, right? But should we have a look at that clip?
Yeah, let's take a look.
It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me and my father say things that just simply weren't true, and my grandmother, you know, quietly sit there and sort of take it all in. But you have to understand that from the family's perspective, especially from hers, there are ways of doing things, and her ultimate sort of mission, goal / responsibility is the institution. People around her are telling her, by the way, that proposal or these two doing X, Y, Z is going to be seen as an attack on the institution. Then she's going to go on the advice that she's given.
I mean, what's your reaction to that, Kristina?
So I think there's two things I'd like to say, picking up on what Camilla was saying. Firstly, I ran the Royal Communications team for the now King, and deals with the media. Camilla is absolutely right. We, as the press officers, the communications team, deal with the media in a very, very fair way, but actually, ostensibly, with mistrust. We're there to protect the very people that we serve. So all of this underhand dealing, and even when I was in the royal household, Prince Harry did have a deep mistrust of the media, which one can understand. He really, really did. He constantly had things to say. How did this leak? How did this get into the newspapers, etc.? And the thing is, no story is ever a secret. You know as well as I do that as well as the royal household knowing something, they'll have told a friend, they'll have told a family member, blah, you know, no one ever really knows how a story leaks, but usually a big secret leaks, OK? Whether that's, you know, if Harry wants to believe that that's the Royal Communications teams doing that, that's absolutely ridiculous and something that I would refute. The other point that I wanted to pick up was this overall destabilising of the monarchy. If the monarchy is this corrupt institution, if it is this institution that's done them so badly and served them so badly, then you could choose, not Harry, it's a birthright, but you could choose to give up your royal titles and be communal members of the public and live your life anonymously, which is the way I thought they wished to leave Britain, to live their life anonymously. However, now their chosen biographers suggest that they want royal titles for their children. Why would you want that when this institution has been so corrosive and so detrimental to your mental health, to everything? Or is it, and I present this as a possibility, or is it that the royal titles are actually the very hand that is feeding the media, feeding the interest in you and feeding the cash that's coming in? That's all I would say.
Ateh.
I have a lot to say to that. This kind of Punch and Judy, I think, is really unhealthy. Why can't they ask for a hybrid? Why can't they ask to be healthy? I know as a black British woman, I have walked through many rooms of power where I've meant to felt very grateful to just be in the room and to raise an opinion or to say anything to make it better has been shot down with the very same inference. If you don't like it, get out. Why can't you be in an institution of power and want it to grow and change and for the better? I don't understand that. And I think from the Netflix show, they were trying very hard to make hybrid, going to Canada, going to New Zealand. I think they really wanted it to work.
I think if they absolutely wanted to change the institution, I think that thought has gone, because there's no way that this documentary can possibly be Harry and Meghan wishing to change the institution. They are corrupting and destabilising what we know to be British monarchy. And from within, they were making wonderful changes, absolutely wonderful changes. And I am saddened if anyone was mistreated. However, I 100% know that the now King of England afforded them every single courtesy and every single kindness to make sure they had the wedding that he never, ever had to his own darling wife.
Can I ask the question? I'm going to ask this to you, Camilla. What do you think with regards to Meghan and the fact that it was really positive in the beginning and it was so beautiful, the wedding and everything, and the fact that it suddenly changed? Does the royal family, are they really bothered about what is said in the headlines?
And they're bothered about what's said because obviously, like any institution, be it the royal family or ITV, they don't want to be the subject of a load of negative publicity.
But Meghan can't control what is being put into the papers, can she? It's not her fault that she's being bigged up and being the number one person.
I mean, look, I think there is a tendency for the media to big people up and then bring them down, but the couple don't seem to acknowledge any of their own responsibility for some of the negative headlines. You know, amidst all of this, when all of this was going on, a bullying complaint was submitted against them. You know, people were unhappy with their behaviour behind palace gates. There were lots of people that might have been party to that then might have spoken to the newspapers. So you don't hear that narrative at all. The documentary is very much, we were perfect, we didn't do anything wrong, the institution worked against us. And that's, you know, not the recollection, if I can use that term, of other people involved in this. But of course, they're not on Netflix. They haven't been invited to contribute. So from a journalistic point of view, you've always got to look at all this and try and see it from both sides. You know, the publicity wasn't all overwhelmingly negative. Even towards the end, there was a lot of people saying, we support Harry and Meghan and we like what we're doing. We quoted people saying, you know, if you went out and did Vox Pops, some people liked what they were doing, some people didn't. That's life. You're never going to have 100% positive publicity because nobody in life is perfect.
No, definitely not. Obviously, all of this that happened, she was going through mental health issues, and I'm sure when you're going through mental health issues, you're probably not going to be the nicest behind the scenes, and that could come across as bullying to some people. But let's take a look at some of the suicidal thoughts that she was actually going through.
I never thought that it would get to that stage, and the fact that it got to that stage, I felt angry and ashamed. I didn't deal with it particularly well. I dealt with it as institutional Harry as opposed to husband Harry. And what took over my feelings was my royal role. I'd been trained to worry more about what are people going to think if we don't go to this event, we're going to be late. And looking back on it now, I hate myself for it.
I think it's interesting, this, because you're having this discussion. I think it's important to remember this isn't sports teams. It's not like you support Arsenal or Tottenham.
Yeah.
You know, you can have conflicting thoughts and have sympathies. And there, for example, I mean, someone's mental health is their mental health. If they're feeling this, then they deserve our sympathy.
Exactly. I'm in my mid-40s. I think I'm of a generation where I was taught to sort of put up and shut up. You know, we are British, stiff upper lip. You know, Meghan isn't. She's American and she has a different sensibility. And I do believe, in my opinion, if she wanted to go to a facility, that would probably have been frowned upon. She's not going to... Maybe she wanted to go sit somewhere and, you know, with a reality star, that would not have been allowed, I can imagine. And I think it is time for us all to heal and recognise that the old model doesn't work anymore. And I think there's in every family, whether it is the royal family or any family in the world, there's always truth tellers who are scapegoated, who are ostracised, who are condemned for saying, I'm not doing this anymore. And I think we see that here.
But absolutely. But by this coming out,
yeah,
I mean, the healing's not going to happen anytime soon, is it?
Exactly. That's a very, very good point, Dermot, because I would ask what their end game is here. They've now ostracised themselves from the whole of their family. Their children will not easily have access with their cousins, you know. And I just think to myself, what are you thinking? What do you want to get as a result of this? Is it a public apology? The monarchy do not say anything. So they've put suggestions out there and inferences out there which they know will not get a response because...
So they will never, the royal family will never respond to this?
You know, I very much doubt that there'll be any statement about this documentary
surely will be,
at all.
As soon as we open our mouths on this, A, precedent dictates that won't happen, but B, as soon as we open our mouths on this, we just fuel the fire, right?
Absolutely. And I think Her Majesty said recollections may vary, and I think that's the beginning and the end of it. This is their truth. Everybody else's truth, as Camilla has said, is not actually allowed to be part of the documentary. It's quite one-sided. There's a lot of Meghan's people speaking out in the documentary. There's not many members of the media. Actually, I don't think yet I've seen any members of the media speaking out. And all I would say is, what is your end game? Because surely you've gone to live your perfect life. You've gone to live the life that you want. You show a story of love. You show a story of happiness. Is that really without any member of your family, Harry, within it? Is that really what you want? How is this going to heal? There is going to be no grandiose public apology. The institution of monarchy, there is a hierarchy. No one's denying that. We see the tier system. It's not a secret. And whether Meghan says she knew about the royal family or she didn't, even that is contradictory. 1 minute she didn't know what Buckingham Palace was, the next minute she didn't know who Prince Harry was, etc., etc. You've now said your truth. Please let this be an end to it.
If you were their comms director, is that what you'd be telling them now?
I think so, because I think they did Oprah Winfrey while the Duke of Edinburgh was dying. And he was in hospital and having to hear the build-up to Oprah Winfrey. We're not even 4 months into Her Majesty's passing, and these bullets keep raining on the monarchy. To what end? What do you want? You know, and I just think it's terribly sad. The love story in the beginning, the first 3 episodes, filled me with hope. That's a lovely story, and if you really have got the life you want, I'm very, very pleased for you, and I'm sure everybody else is. But the next 3 episodes show that there's a lot of bitterness, a lot of things that they want answers for that they're never going to get. And they've now ostracised themselves from the very people that love them.
Camilla, final thoughts?
I agree with what Kristina's saying. I think also one needs to be mindful of everybody's mental health in all this. I mean, goodness knows if the Prince and Princess of Wales, or indeed the King, have watched this, are going to watch it, how they feel and how they react. At the heart of this, there is a family breakdown, which I think is tragic, particularly at Christmas. But moreover, guys, in a moment, I think you're probably going to get onto the nurses' strike and talk about the cost of living crisis. You know, there are probably more important things for people to be worried about. And with the greatest respect to Harry and Meghan and everything that they've gone through, they're living an extremely privileged existence. And actually, I would humbly suggest that maybe their complaints about all this are rather piffling in comparison to people who are struggling to choose between heating and eating this Christmas. That's my final.
Kristina, Ateh, thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much.
Civilised discussion as well. Thank you.